Hello Nippies, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, hi, hello, I'm Nips, a freelance artist, and this is Kenny. Woo. Who is going to be a huge part of this video because he did not want to leave any of the frames, and so welcome him, the new star of the video. Today's video is sponsored by ARRTX, and we're going to try their acrylic paint markers with the brush tip liquid ink in 36 colors. These specific pens are with a brush tip, like I said, and I already have some YouTube videos trying out another set of theirs that also had kind of a brush tip, so I more or less already know what to expect, and here he is again. How could I not include this clip? Look at him. Oh, so cute. As usual, I start by making a swatch template for each color and I leave room for the name, which these conveniently already have on the side, but the way they're packaged made it slightly annoying to see all the numbers easily. As I start to swatch, already forget to press record, so, professional YouTuber. When I do acrylic marker swatches, I tend to like to do them on tanned or colored papers, so that way I can see the opacity good. And the one I've been using a lot recently, which everybody asks me which one it is, this one is the Strathmore with tanned paper, and I've linked it down below in my Amazon shop if you guys want to get it through there. Give me some small commission. It helps a lot. If not, the link is there if you guys are interested. So far, the swatches for these did not disappoint, especially if you shake them well as it writes before using. So that way the ink can come out like thicky, very opaque, bright. And if you shake too hard, it has happened to me, the ink will pool and you either have to dab the tip a little bit or just kind of spread it throughout your stroke so you don't waste the ink. However, I noticed that even if I do that with some of the brighter colors, you'll notice are still kind of see-through. It's not a huge problem, but it does happen, so be aware of that. Overall, I absolutely loved how they swatched, and I really like the color range, which is a bias of mine because I love bright saturated colors, as you can see here. So keep that in mind when you're buying markers, the color range, and also that these are acrylic, so they do not layer the same way. Getting into the actual performance of the markers, I've compiled a bunch of clips of me using them over the course of a month because normally I do basically first impressions and then call it a review. So I really wanted to give these a fair shot before making the video. And it's pretty common that with traditional supplies, I feel differently after a couple uses. So here we go. The first thing I noticed is that I had to twist the clear plastic part of the marker several times because it just kept coming loose and I have no idea why this was happening. I was using the markers from anywhere from 30 minutes a day to 5 hours if I just had a long session. I don't know if it's just the way I was grabbing them. I don't know if it's because of the length of usage. And I really didn't do a deep dive investigation on why it just kind of kept happening, even with markers that I wasn't using that day as often as others. So it wasn't annoying enough that it would break my flow since it was like a very quick thing, but it was annoying that it was happening regardless. So I would just keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that the light colors, as you can see here, do in fact go on less opaque than the others. I don't know if it's a color specific thing or a batch thing because you can see that the white here goes on pretty opaque. I would sometimes just put the cap back on and shake it and the paint would come out thicker. And of course, boom, that would solve my problem. And sometimes it wouldn't even do anything. So I have no idea. I know this is something that could be solved by potentially buying several batches of markers and testing that out to see what the actual problem is. But I will leave that level of investigation to someone else. Another thing is the texture of the paper in your sketchbook or wherever you're working. This specific paper is not very porous. As you can see, the marker just glides on top. The original sketchbook that ARRTX sent me when I first tried their markers, and they sponsored a TikTok from me because videos on this channel are not sponsored. I made those after because you guys asked me for the full footage of the drawings. So that sketchbook is very porous. So the colors just kind of, the paint just sticks onto the page, but the markers do run out faster because of that. So do keep in mind the texture of the paper that you're working on because it will greatly impact how these colors and how these markers feel. Next up is the layering, which of course you want every acrylic marker to do well. And as you can see here, these are phenomenal. Naturally, the dark goes on top of the light perfectly, but the light on top of the dark, oh my goodness, look how vibrant all the colors are. And even when they don't go on super perfectly, they dry really fast, so you can just add a second layer on top, which is what I did originally with the less opaque colors when they were going straight onto the sketchbook page. However, those exact colors, when put on a layer of another marker, actually worked pretty decently. So I think that's just more evidence that the texture of the paper that you're working on is a pretty big factor. So you'll see here that I'm layering it on top to get that more full color. And speaking of layering, these markers are actually pretty similar to gouache, if you know anything about that, in that when you put the color down, it will dry differently. And unlike gouache, however, these tend to really only happen with like the darker colors. I don't know if it's because of the lighting that I have going on that it's just like reflecting off the actual ink. But for the most part, when I use the darker colors, I do have to keep in mind the swatch on the side because it will very reliably just dry to the swatch color. So it's important to have your swatches near you. That's why I always have them there to make sure that I'm constantly taking into consideration the final color. Unlike gouache, though, because you're not constantly mixing colors, you can pretty much isolate which ones are the markers that give you the most problems so that you can just keep it in mind. Whereas in gouache, you're constantly mixing colors. So it's just something you have to keep in mind all the time, no matter what color you're using. Another thing I would encounter with these is the pooling of the ink. I don't know why it would do this. I don't move the markers around a lot and I don't shake the markers unless I have to. So sometimes I would just open the marker and it would just be leaking like all over my drawing. I would have to check the tip to make sure that it wasn't going to put a giant splotch of paint like you see here. Unfortunately, I was using a white paper to get rid of the paint, so you can really see the splooging efficiently, but that is something that I didn't really know how to avoid. Of course, if I'm shaking the marker, you'll see like a small splooge of paint at the bottom of the pen, but otherwise, I don't think that should be happening. The storage was exactly as it came. They are laid horizontally and I don't move them a lot. So I'm not sure if that's like a storage problem. Maybe I could have tested that more efficiently now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, that is something that happened to me quite often. As far as mixing goes, because if you're using your traditional marker, which you can pretty much layer like watercolors or use the transparent blending brush, which will give you like a nice gradient between one color and another, these are paint that layer on top of each other pretty opaquely, so it is going to be different. However, they are paint at the end of the day, so you could technically relay race your markers and kind of get this really nice blend going, which I did once, but it kind of ruined the tip of my marker. So I had to like continuously use it to wash out that color. So I probably wouldn't recommend that. I have tried to use my fingers. You'll see it several times as the speed paints are going. I'll sometimes just use my finger to kind of swoosh them across the page or maybe just tap them into each other. So that is an alternative. I know I have seen some people also use brushes. So at that point, I would be defeating the purpose of this review by using something else and kind of like mixing mediums. But it is a really cool alternative to just using whatever's at your disposal to get a really cool effect if you're going to be using this outside of an exclusive marker review. Okay, side note, because my allergies are actually getting worse as I keep doing this voiceover. So if you haven't noticed already that I have like a stuffy nose, I've done my job in hiding it well, but oh my goodness, I don't think I can hide it anymore. So I am so sorry if it sounds like I have a stuffy nose because I do. Okay, next up, the longevity, because this is the main reason why I wanted to do an extended trial period of sorts. Because when I tried the set that Artix originally sent me, I absolutely fell in love with them, but some colors just kind of died on me very quickly. And somebody in the comments suggested that I dip them in hot water to kind of get the activation going again. and it worked really well. However, the colors sometimes ended up just really watery, and it just felt like at that point I was sucking the marker dry out of ink, which honestly, get your money's worth. However, with these, thankfully, it never really got there, even though, as you can see here, I'm struggling to get the blue out. A lot of the times I would just shake it and it would come back to life. So I don't really know why that's the case. I tried to see how much actual ink is in these on the website and it doesn't say, but for some reason, these just feel like they last longer, especially because I use these even more than the other ones. So I have no idea. Another thing is the wear and tear on the tip. For the first set that I tried, the wear and tear was quite horrible because the tip is not as thin and flexible as this one. I don't really know what words to use, but it basically frayed out pretty quickly, so you no longer have a really nice thin tip, whereas these seem to last pretty long. I don't know what the actual technical difference is, but these remain very sharp for much longer. Last but not least, I already mentioned this, but please shake these markers with the cap on. There's a reason why it says it on the marker itself. I did it once and I will not do it again. It just splooged all over my paper. So, read the instructions. Overall, I absolutely loved these markers. This is probably my favorite set of theirs. I use them so much. I did not film some of my sketches, so you'll see in this little sketchbook tour some drawings that I did not include clips of. However, the clips I did include, I have the full speed paints of those drawings, so let me know if there are any of them that you like that you would like to see the full process of. And thank you again to ARRTX for sponsoring this video and the next one because I'm doing another set of theirs. I have coupon codes down below if you like these markers or you want any other supplies from them. But yeah, like the video if you liked it. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought. Subscribe. The more, the merrier. And thank you for watching. I will see you guys next video. Bye.